40 years ago, the landscape was vastly different. MTV was gaining popularity, Atari was a household name, and socializing meant spending time with friends and family rather than scrolling through social media feeds. Safety standards in cars were lax, with regulations more akin to suggestions than strict laws. Seatbelt usage was minimal, and some questioned their necessity altogether. Children often rode unrestrained in the front seat, sometimes even standing up to see over the dashboard or assisting with steering. It was common to find kids crammed into the back of station wagons or riding in the bed of pickup trucks. While car seats were available, they were seldom used, and leaving children unattended in parked cars was not uncommon. Windows were often left down for ventilation, and children were considered safe. Kids were highly active, often spending entire days playing outside without constant supervision from parents. Top of form. Back then, you could easily spot where all the neighborhood kids were by checking out someone's yard and seeing the collection of bicycles. If bikes weren't visible, kids would typically knock on their friends' doors to see if they were home and up for playing outside. Wearing helmets while biking wasn't common. They were hard to find in stores, and even if available, most kids didn't want them. The same went for elbow and knee pads. Showing off a recent injury or skinned knee was seen as cool. If you were out too late and needed to call home, payphones were readily available, and not having change wasn't an issue since you could make a collect call. Parents would come pick you up, bikes in tow if you had them, or they'd expect you home by the time the streetlights came on. Smoking was prevalent, with parents smoking indoors and in cars with kids present. Secondhand smoke was just something everyone accepted, and concerns about its effects on children were minimal. Top of form. Back then, it was common to see people smoking freely in restaurants, often without designated smoking sections. Cigarette machines were also a familiar sight outside stores and restaurants, requiring no ID check. Customers simply inserted quarters and pulled the knob. Kids would often run errands to convenience stores, sometimes even buying cigarettes with a note from their parents and a blank check. Given the prevalent smoking culture, it's unsurprising that attitudes towards alcohol were similarly lax. While alcohol wasn't typically consumed by kids, many likely tasted it out of curiosity when offered by parents. Top of form. During the era when latchkey kids were prevalent, societal norms surrounding parental supervision were quite different from today. With both parents often working outside the home, children were frequently left to fend for themselves or look after younger siblings until their parents returned. This was widely accepted as a normal part of growing up, with the belief that children who could handle basic tasks like dialing important numbers or contacting emergency services were deemed responsible enough to be left home alone. In the context of discipline in the 1980s, physical punishment was a prevalent method used by parents, family members, and even teachers to address instances of misbehavior or disrespect. Paddling or swats, typically administered with a hand, paddle, or other implement, were considered standard disciplinary measures and were widely accepted within society. The rationale behind physical punishment was rooted in the belief that inflicting physical discomfort or pain would deter children from engaging in similar behavior in the future. It was seen as a way to teach discipline and respect for authority, with the aim of instilling obedience and adherence to societal norms. Parents often viewed physical punishment as an effective means of quickly addressing misbehavior, as punishments were typically administered immediately following the infraction. This immediacy reinforced the connection between the behavior and its consequences, reinforcing the message that certain actions would not be tolerated. However, it's important to acknowledge that while physical punishment was common and accepted during this time, it could also have negative psychological and emotional effects on children. Research has since shown that physical punishment can lead to increased aggression, lower self-esteem, and a range of other adverse outcomes in children. In recent decades, there has been a shift in societal attitudes towards discipline, with an increasing emphasis on positive and nonviolent approaches to behavior management. Many parents and educators now advocate for strategies such as positive reinforcement, communication, and setting clear boundaries as more effective and humane alternatives to physical punishment. Despite the existence of peanut allergies, peanut butter sandwiches and other peanut products remain staples in many children's diets and lunchboxes. Allergy awareness and accommodations were not as widespread or regulated as they are today. Allergy bans and EpiPens, which are now standard tools for managing severe allergies, weren't available until 1987. This left children with peanut allergies vulnerable to exposure and potential allergic reactions, as there were fewer safeguards in place to protect them in school environments and other communal settings. Top of form. During the 1980s, malls served as the quintessential gathering spot for teenagers. It was where friendships were forged and social bonds were strengthened over shared activities like shopping, dining, and simply hanging out. Parents were generally more trusting of their teenagers' ability to navigate the mall independently, allowing them to spend hours there without supervision. This freedom fostered a sense of autonomy and independence among teenagers who relished the opportunity to socialize with their peers in a public setting. However, in today's digital age, the dynamics of teenage socialization have shifted. While malls still attract teenage visitors, the prolonged presence of teenagers without a clear purpose may raise concerns about loitering or suspicious behavior. As a result, teens today may be less likely to spend entire days at the mall and may opt for shorter, more purpose-driven visits. Chickenpox parties were a common practice before the development of a vaccine. The prevailing belief was that it was better for children to contract chickenpox early in life to build immunity and avoid potential complications later on. When one child in the neighborhood or social circle showed signs of chickenpox, parents would often organize a party to intentionally expose other uninfected children to the virus. These gatherings were seen as a proactive approach to immunization, relying on the natural course of the illness to confer immunity to participants. However, with the availability of vaccines today, chickenpox parties have largely become a relic of the past, replaced by routine vaccination protocols recommended by healthcare professionals. The introduction of the PG-13 rating in 1984 was indeed a pivotal moment in the history of movie ratings. Prior to its inception, there was a significant disparity between the PG, parental guidance, and R, restricted ratings, leaving a sizable gap in content appropriateness for younger audiences. This meant that films classified as PG could contain content that today might be deemed unsuitable for children, while R-rated films often featured explicit content unsuitable for younger viewers. This gap led to confusion among parents and moviegoers about the suitability of certain films for different age groups. Films like Airplane, initially rated PG, showcased a level of adult humor and nudity that would be considered inappropriate for a PG rating by today's standards. However, at the time, such content was deemed acceptable within the confines of a PG rating, highlighting the need for a more nuanced classification system. The release of Red Dawn in August 1984 marked a significant milestone as the first PG-13 rated movie to hit theaters. This new rating bridged the gap between PG and R, providing a middle ground that allowed for more mature themes and content while still maintaining some level of parental guidance. This move reflected evolving societal attitudes towards movie content and the recognition of the need for a more nuanced and flexible rating system. Over the past 4 decades, there have been profound shifts, not only in technology, but also in regulations and societal norms. The 1980s witnessed rapid advancements in technology, such as the rise of personal computers and the advent of the internet. Additionally, changes in regulations, including the implementation of stricter safety standards in various industries, have reshaped our daily lives. Furthermore, societal norms have evolved significantly, particularly regarding issues such as gender roles, diversity, and inclusion. Many younger generations may be unaware of the numerous changes that occurred during the 1980s and the impact they continue to have on contemporary society. Understanding these historical shifts is crucial for gaining insights into our present-day cultural landscape and navigating future challenges and opportunities. I hope you enjoyed this nostalgic journey. Thank you for watching. Why don't you join me here? Well, Vince, I've invited my pet to sit on my lap to make a point. And what's that? Your carelessness. Even if we buckle our seatbelts, even if we hold on tightly, even if we're attentive to the road. Top of form.